never thought a single chair, a simple wooden chair at a Christmas dinner table, could break a mother's heart in ways years of struggle never did. But that night, when my daughter pushed me aside and said, "That chair is for my mother-in-law. Move," something inside me cracked so quietly that even I didn't hear it at first. I only felt the cold that followed. Before I begin, if you're here listening, if you've ever loved someone more than they've ever loved you back, please stay with me till the end. And if my story touches you even a little, I would be grateful if you could like the video, subscribe, and stay with me for more moments like this one. It helps more than you know. Now, let me take you back to the night that changed everything. I remember the smell of cinnamon and roasted apples filling my kitchen, the soft glow of the yellow fairy lights I had hung every December for as long as my daughter had been alive, a tradition we once cherished together, hands tangled with strings of lights, laughing while the ends always nodded. This year, I hung them alone. She had told me she was busy settling into her new home, busy learning how to be a wife, busy helping her mother-in-law prepare Christmas their way, not ours. I told myself it was normal. Children grow up. They form new families. They drift. But the truth, a mother feels the distance before anyone else notices it. We can sense when a door has quietly closed behind us, even if we keep pretending it's still open. Still, I cooked. I decorated. I polished every glass, ironed every napkin, lit every candle, because she had promised she'd come home for Christmas dinner, our first Christmas apart. And yet, somehow, our last Christmas together, when she finally arrived, her cheeks were pink from the winter cold, her hair tied neatly in a bun I didn't recognize. She used to hate tying her hair, said it made her look too strict. But now they stood there, her and her mother-in-law, both in matching buns, matching coats, matching stiff smiles. I told myself it was nothing, just a coincidence. Her mother-in-law stepped in first, wiping her boots on my mat as if she owned the place. She nodded politely, but her eyes scanned my home as though it were an outdated museum that desperately needed renovation. My daughter didn't hug me. Not really. She brushed her cheek against mine, the kind of hug you give someone when other eyes are watching and you're trying to avoid making a scene. "Mom, everything smells nice," she said, but the pause before nice was long enough to be felt. Still, I smiled. I told myself to hold on. This was Christmas. We would eat together, talk, laugh, maybe even heal. But life doesn't wait for the right moment to shatter you. It breaks you in the middle of hope. I had already set the table. 3 seats. Mine, my daughter's, and her mother-in-law's. But with the excitement of cooking, I had temporarily placed my purse on one of the chairs, the one beside my daughter, the one I always sat in. My daughter walked up to the table, paused, and then I saw something shift in her expression. A tiny glimpse of annoyance. Barely there, but I caught it. She turned to me, and her voice, soft, but sharp enough to pierce, cut through the room. "Mom, you can't sit there. That chair is for my mother-in-law." I blinked, just blinked, because surely I misheard. Surely she didn't mean what it sounded like. I took a slow step forward. "Sweetheart, this has always been my seat." She exhaled an irritated breath I had never heard from her before. "I know, Mom, but things are different now." She gestured to her mother-in-law. "She sits next to me at family dinners. It's how we do it now. So please move." Move, a simple word, a harmless one. But the way she said it, the way she didn't look at me afterward, the way she waited, arms crossed, shoulders stiff, as if daring me to disagree, felt like a slap I hadn't earned. I wanted to ask, since when do we do things their way? When did I stop being your family? When did I become the guest in my own home? But I didn't ask anything. When you're a mother, you learn to swallow pain like air. I picked up my purse from the chair. My hand trembled so much I almost dropped it. She didn't notice, or maybe she did, but chose not to. Her mother-in-law smiled slightly as she sat down, a smile that said everything without a single word. A smile that said, I won, but I still tried. God, I tried. Throughout dinner, I kept serving them, passing dishes, filling glasses, asking softly if they needed anything. Because that's what mothers do. We serve with love, hoping love will be enough. But my daughter barely looked at me. She laughed at her mother-in-law's stories, leaned closer to her, whispered things only the two of them were meant to share. I sat at the far end of the table, alone, watching them bond over a life I wasn't part of. I kept smiling, even when my chest felt too tight to breathe. Near the end of dinner, I stood to clear the plates, and I reached for the dish near my daughter. But she touched my hand, cold, distant, and said, Mom, leave it. She'll do it. She, not me, not the mother who raised her alone. Worked double shifts, missed meals so she could eat, sewed her dresses late at night, stayed awake during every fever, clapped at every school win, held her after every heartbreak. Know she would do it. The woman who entered her life barely a year ago. I felt something crumble inside me, this time loud enough to hear. But I stayed quiet, because mothers break quietly. And then, when the night finally ended, my daughter hugged her mother-in-law longer than she hugged me. She whispered Merry Christmas to her with a warmth she hadn't given me once that evening. I watched their car drive away while the snow kept falling softly, covering the footprints they left on my porch. And when I closed the door, the house felt heavier than it ever had. I walked to the table, looked at the empty chair next to where my daughter sat. And that's when the realization punched me in the chest. I had raised a daughter who no longer saw me. And maybe, just maybe, I had spent so long loving her that I forgot to teach her how to love me back. That night, I sat alone in my living room, the lights twinkling like distant stars, and I whispered to myself, maybe this is the beginning of a story I never wanted to tell. I wish I could tell you that the days after Christmas got easier, that my daughter called, apologized, or even sent a simple message asking if I was okay. But silence has a way of stretching itself across days and weeks until it becomes another presence in the house. A presence that follows you from room to room, one you can't run from and can't talk to. 3 days passed before she texted, not to ask how I was, or if I had eaten, or if I was hurt. No. It was a message that read, Mom, thanks for dinner. Next year, we'll do it at their house. Their house. Not ours. Not mine. Not the home she grew up in. I stared at the message for a long time, my thumb hovering above the keyboard, trying to decide if I should ask the questions, clawing at my chest. Why didn't you sit with me? When did she start meaning more than I do? Why did you push me aside? But I didn't ask any of them. Because one thing motherhood teaches you, sometimes painfully, is that you cannot force your child to treat you the way you deserve. I simply replied, okay, sweetheart, take care. And that was the start of a slow, quiet unraveling. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. And every time she called, which wasn't often, our conversations felt rehearsed, like she was reading from a script written by someone who didn't know me. Her mother-in-law's opinions began to creep into every sentence. She thinks I should. She believes it's better if. She says this is how families should be. It was subtle at first, barely noticeable, but I felt the shift. I felt her slipping away inch by inch, smile by smile, decision by decision that no longer included me. I kept trying, though. I sent her soup when she fell sick. I wear upon her a scarf for her birthday. I offered to help decorate her first home. But her replies stayed the same. Oh, My mother-in-law already did that. She took care of it. She handled it. Every time she said she, a small part of me folded inward and disappeared. I wasn't jealous. Jealousy is loud and angry. What I felt was quieter, a kind of fading I didn't know how to fight. One night, after a long day at work, I came home to a box sitting on my front porch. Inside it was a set of glass ornaments, the ones my daughter and I used to decorate together every Christmas. I recognized her handwriting on the note. "Mom, we won't be needing these anymore." She got us new ones to match the house theme. I held the ornament in my hand, my fingers tracing the names we painted when she was 9. Mom and Lily, and suddenly, the truth I had been avoiding hit me so hard it stole my breath. She wasn't just drifting. She was replacing me. Not because I wasn't good enough, but because someone else had stepped into the role I had held alone for so long. Her mother-in-law wasn't evil, just possessive, maybe overly involved, eager to solidify her place in her son's new life. And my daughter, my sweet, warm, soft-hearted Lily, had always been easily influenced by the people she admired. And now, she admired her more. A few days later, I invited my daughter for tea. Just the two of us. I wanted to talk, to reconnect, to see if there was anything left to salvage before the distance became irreversible. She came, but she didn't come alone. Her mother-in-law walked in behind her. My living room suddenly felt too small, too crowded. To watch. My daughter sat close to her mother-in-law, not near me. I brought tea, served them both, and sat across from them, my hands folded in my lap to keep them from shaking. We talked for a while, or rather, the two of them talked while I listened. I didn't sleep at all that night, not because of the pain, not because of the humiliation, not even because of what my daughter said at the Christmas table. I stayed awake because for the first time in years, I saw myself clearly, not as a mother, not as a wife, not as the dependable woman who always made space for everyone else, but as a human being who had been slowly disappearing. And the moment I realized that, the grief inside me began to shift, not fade. No, grief doesn't disappear that easily, but it started turning into something else, something steady, something silent, something strong. The next morning, I got out of bed with a kind of heaviness I can't describe. It wasn't sadness exactly. It was acceptance. I walked into the kitchen, expecting awkward silence or something. But when I entered, every head turned toward me. My son-in-law looked terrified to even breathe. My daughter looked like she hadn't slept. And my husband, he sat there with a coffee cup trembling in his hand. The moment he saw me, he quietly placed the cup down, like he didn't trust himself to hold it. I didn't say good morning. I didn't say anything. I simply walked to the fridge, poured myself a glass of water, and turned to leave. But my daughter blocked the doorway, so small compared to me, and yet she stood like someone protecting a burning house behind her. "Mom, please don't go upstairs," she whispered. Her voice cracked so badly, I barely recognized it. "I need to talk to you." "Talk," I said. My voice sounded calm, but inside, something was trembling. She swallowed hard. Her eyes glistened, and whatever she had been holding in, it broke. The words came out all at once, messy and fragile. "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I said that last night. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know why I chose her over you." She covered her face and burst into tears. You know that strange feeling when someone hurts you so deeply and then cries harder than you did? That's what it felt like. My body froze. I didn't know what to do. Comfort her, hold her, tell her it was okay, except it wasn't okay. And pretending had been the problem all along. I sat down slowly. She knelt next to me. "Mom," she whispered, Please say something. I looked down at her trembling hands, and for the first time, I didn't reach out to hold them. I can't fix this for you, I said softly, and you can't undo what you said. She cried harder, this guttural sound that shook her whole body. My husband stood in the corner, watching us like a man who finally realized he had no right to step in, no right to comfort me, no right to speak for me. He opened his mouth once, then shut it, and that silence said more than any apology he could ever give. My daughter finally whispered, "Please don't leave. Please stay." My throat tightened. I loved her, with every breath, with every part of me, with the kind of love only mothers understand. But love doesn't mean staying in places where you are hurt again and again. "Sweetheart," I said quietly, "I'm not leaving to punish you. I'm leaving to find myself again." Her face crumpled. "But we need you," she whispered. I smiled sadly. "No, you need to learn to respect me." Silence, painful, heavy, real. I stood up and walked to my husband. He didn't look up, didn't try to defend anyone, didn't make excuses. He just whispered, "I failed you." It was the first honest thing he'd said in years. I nodded once, not with anger, not with forgiveness, just acknowledgement. Then I went upstairs to pack. Not a dramatic packing, not throwing clothes or slamming drawers. No theatrics. Just a woman quietly choosing herself for the first time. I took only what belonged to me. A few clothes, a few books, a framed picture of my daughter when she was little, before the world shaped her into someone who forgot her mother's worth. When I came downstairs, my daughter ran to the door, blocking it again. "Mom, please, at least tell me when you'll come back." I shook my head. "I don't know." She looked shattered. "Will you call?" she whispered. "I don't know." She cried so hard her whole body shook. But I walked past her gently, not coldly, just with a kind of peace she didn't understand yet. Sometimes leaving is not the loud kind. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's soft. Sometimes it's the only way left to love yourself. Outside, the cold air hit my face, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. I got into my car, closed the door, rested my forehead against the steering wheel. I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. I just felt free. Minutes later, someone tapped on my window. I looked up at my husband. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him. Eyes red, face pale, breathing shaky. He mouthed, "Please, don't go." But I didn't roll the window down. Not out of cruelty, out of clarity. His lips trembled. "You're my wife," he said, barely audible through the glass. "You're my home." I shook my head slowly. "You stopped being mine a long time ago," I whispered, even though he couldn't hear it. I started the engine. He stepped back, not out of respect, out of shock, out of the realization that this time I wasn't threatening. I wasn't bluffing. I wasn't asking for change. I was the change. As I pulled out of the driveway, I saw my daughter run out behind him, barefoot in the freezing cold, calling my name. Her voice cracked and echoed against the houses. But I kept driving. Not far, just far enough. I rented a small apartment, quiet, warm, filled with sunlight in the mornings. A place that smelled like peace. Days passed. Then weeks. Then 2 months. My daughter would text sometimes. Not guilt-filled texts. Not dramatic apologies. Just, "Mom, I made your soup today. It didn't taste the same." "Mom, I miss you." "Mom, can we talk when you're ready?" My husband didn't text at all, until one night. I was making tea when my phone lit up. "I sat in your empty chair today. It hurt more than anything you could have said." I didn't reply. Not because I hated him, not because I wanted revenge. I just didn't want to go back to being invisible. A few weeks later, My daughter came to see me in person, alone, no dramatics, just a girl carrying the weight of her own words. She sat on my couch, hands shaking. "Mom," she whispered, "I finally understand." Her voice broke. "When you left, everything changed. The house felt wrong. Christmas didn't feel like Christmas, and your chair stayed empty. We kept it empty because no one deserved to sit there." My eyes warmed, but I stayed silent. She wiped her tears with the back of her sleeve. "I didn't push you aside because I stopped loving you. I pushed you aside because I got too comfortable with your love. And I forgot. You're not replaceable." Her voice trembled. "I don't want a world where you're gone." I closed my eyes. It hurt to hear, but it healed something too. I reached across the couch and took her hand. Not like a mother rescuing a child, but like two women meeting each other honestly for the first time. "It will take time," I whispered. She nodded. "I know." We sat like that for a long time, quiet, broken, rebuilding. Not everything was fixed. Not everything was forgiven. But something new had begun. Something cleaner. Something real. As for my husband, the chair stayed empty. Yes, but his side of the bed stayed empty too. And sometimes, emptiness is its own consequence. I didn't return home officially. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I returned to myself, and that was enough. Maybe one day, my daughter and I will sit at a Christmas table again. Maybe one day, she'll look at the chair next to her and remember that love is not a convenience, it's a choice. And this time, she'll choose better. As for me, I found peace in a small apartment. I found warmth in quiet mornings. I found strength in finally choosing myself. And that was the most beautiful ending I could have asked for.